All right, so welcome to your deep dive. You sent in some pieces from that romantic comedy novel, Funny Story, and we're going to take a look at it for you today. So basically, we want to figure out Daphne, the main character. Is she going to be okay? What can we learn from her experiences? I think we're going to find some twists and turns here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like we're getting this intimate peek into Daphne's world, almost like reading her diary.
Exactly. Yeah, and it all begins with this whirlwind romance. She meets Peter in a park. Just imagine this. He's trying to rescue his hat from a runaway kite. She trips over a dog. They both end up in this pile of discarded low mean. Instant connection. 5 weeks later, living together. A year later, engaged. Fast forward another year, they've moved to Waning Bay, Michigan. Peter buys a house. Daphne lands her dream job as a children's librarian.
And that seemed perfect, right? It did seem perfect on the surface, but that word home really seems to be like a powerful thing for Daphne. She talks about her past, being this minimalist, almost rootless, but then Peter comes along. Suddenly there's this urge to nest, to create a space that's theirs.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if maybe she was subconsciously searching for a place to belong.
Yeah, she's finally ready to put down some roots, and Peter's that key, right? Peter's welcome home is like that key that unlocks this desire. But then, bam, the rug gets pulled out from under her. Peter takes off for his bachelor party, comes back the next morning, and dumps her for Petra, his childhood best friend.
Brutal timing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they just moved into this new house. Well, his house and Daphne's left to pick up the pieces. Peter basically gives her a week to get out. Even, helpfully provides apartment listings. Talk about adding insult to injury.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And so that's where Miles comes in, Petra's now ex-boyfriend. He becomes Daphne's kind of reluctant roommate. You mentioned you've had some interesting roommate experiences. So what do you think about this dynamic here?
Oh, it's a pressure cooker, right? They're both dealing with the fallout from these two people. Stuck in this tiny apartment.
Yeah.
Daphne is, hyper-organized. Miles is, well, not so much. Her stuff's crammed into one little room, a far cry from that spacious house she thought she'd be in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's interesting because the story kind of hints at this underlying tension there. Like, Peter never really liked Miles, thought he wasn't good enough for Petra. Makes you wonder if Peter's judgment was clouded by something else.
Oh, absolutely. Could it be that he sensed Petra's feelings, maybe saw Miles as, a threat? Adds another layer to things, for sure.
Definitely, definitely. So picture this. Daphne and Miles are sitting in their little cramped apartment, feeling sorry for themselves, when the mail arrives. And guess what? Wedding invitations. Peter and Petra getting married on Labor Day weekend. That's just a month after Daphne and Peter's original date. Talk about a slap in the face, huh?
Bold move. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is there something else going on? Is Petra maybe pregnant?
Ooh, that's a good theory. Daphne, of course, is furious, understandably so. Miles, though, seems more resigned. Maybe he saw this coming. But what's really interesting here is that Daphne shows this vulnerable side we haven't seen before. She breaks down crying, and guess who she turns to?
Miles.
Miles. It's their first real moment of physical contact. And it seems to shift their whole dynamic. Daphne, who's usually so reserved, is letting her guard down. And Miles, even though he's heartbroken himself, is stepping up, offering her support. You mentioned you're interested in characters who kind of defy expectations. Do you think this reaction from Miles is hinting at something more than just friendly comfort?
It definitely raises some questions, yeah. And it gets even more interesting when we find out Miles isn't just a delivery guy, like Peter led Daphne to believe. He actually works at a winery.
Right.
Makes you wonder if Peter was intentionally downplaying Miles's accomplishments.
Oh, totally. Trying to keep Daphne in the dark about his potential. And then Daphne finally admits to Miles, I don't like Petra, even one tiny bit.
I mean, understandable, right?
Oh, yeah.
But her confession, it's not just anger or resentment. There's this, underlying sadness, almost like she's mourning the loss of a friendship.
Absolutely. And then Miles throws in that he suspected Petra's feelings all along, but he chose to ignore them. Makes you think, how much are we all willing to overlook when we're in love, right? So Miles decides, hey, let's lighten the mood here. He takes Daphne out to this dive bar called Meat Locker. Would you ever be caught dead in a place called Meat Locker? I'm picturing sticky floors, questionable smells, leather everywhere.
It definitely sounds like an experience.
Yeah.
And it's there that they meet Gil, this old biker with he's got a thing for witchy woman on the jukebox. And a whole lot of hard luck stories, it seems.
And Miles, surprisingly, becomes this master storyteller. He's drawing out Gil's life story with such ease. It's this unexpected side of him that starts to change Daphne's view of him. This tough biker is like their unlikely therapist for the night, sharing all this wisdom from, a pretty unconventional life. Speaking of unconventional, you mentioned you've had some interesting experiences yourself. Ever find yourself bonding with someone totally unexpected in like a completely random place?
Oh, all the time. It's amazing how, like, shared experiences, even the bad ones, like heartbreak, can create these instant connections. But yeah, with Daphne and Miles, I think their night at Meat Locker is doing more than just distracting them. It's like they're starting to see each other differently.
Totally. So does misery really love company? Or is there something more developing here? Remember how Daphne said she never wanted to see another throw pillow again after packing up that whole house? Well, turns out minimalist Daphne went a little overboard with the nesting.
Oh, yeah. It's hilarious how she describes the guest room in Miles' apartment, like an explosion of home goods.
Right.
It's like all her shattered dreams just crammed into this one little space.
And then there's the wedding dress. Ugh, the wedding dress. She talks about trying to sell it online, but she can't even look at it.
Such a powerful symbol, right?
Yeah.
This reminder of the future she thought she had with Peter. It makes the heartbreak feel so real. You mentioned you're a visual person, so do you think the author did a good job using these objects, to represent her emotional state?
Oh, absolutely. The overstuffed guest room, the wedding dress hidden away. It's like she's surrounded by these reminders of what she's lost. And it's in this setting, amidst the biker bar chaos and spilled drinks, that Miles does something completely unexpected. He puts on Witchy Woman by the Eagles.
Interesting choice. You'd think a heartbroken guy would go for something, I don't know, a little more melancholic. But there's something defiant about it, right? Like he's refusing to let heartbreak ruin the night.
Exactly. And it seems to be working. Daphne actually cracks a smile. They even end up having this impromptu dance-off with Gil. It's like a scene straight out of a movie.
It is. And it's a good example of how the author uses humor to balance the heavier themes. A reminder that even in heartbreak, there's still joy and laughter and connection.
And as the night goes on, Miles just keeps surprising Daphne. He's so comfortable talking to Gil, drawing out these stories about his time in a rock band, his brief stint in a cult. Yes, a cult. And those mysterious troubles that brought him to Waning Bay.
It's clear that Miles has this gift, right? This ability to connect with people. He sees past the surface, finds the humanity in everyone he meets. Even a grizzled biker with a questionable past.
Right. And remember how Peter made it seem like Miles was just this, I don't know, directionless slacker? Turns out he's a deep thinker with a unique perspective, almost like Peter was threatened by that,
It definitely makes you wonder about Peter's motives. Was he intentionally trying to, keep Daphne away from Miles?
Yeah.
Maybe he sensed that connection?
It's like he's trying to control the narrative, even though the relationship is over. But Daphne is starting to see through it. As she listens to Miles and Gil, you can almost see the wheels turning. She's reevaluating everything she thought she knew about him.
First impressions can be so deceiving. Sometimes the people we dismiss are the ones who surprise us the most.
So here we have Daphne, heartbroken, surrounded by throw pillows, finding this unexpected connection with Miles, the guy her ex warned her about. Where do you think this is going?
Well, that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? We want more, but it's clear that Daphne is starting to come out of this wreckage, with a new sense of self. She's questioning things, challenging her assumptions, and opening herself up to new possibilities.
And Miles is the catalyst, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's showing her that there's more to life than following some, prescribed path, that sometimes the best experience is the ones you don't expect.
Yeah, it's like they say, right? Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself. Daphne thought she had it all, the house, the life, but it was all like an illusion, right? Now she's starting over, literally starting over, in this cramped apartment with a guy who eats cereal for dinner and has a framed photo of his pet iguana, messy, chaotic, and, it might be exactly what she needs, It's funny. It's like that classic rom-com trope, right? The heroine hits rock bottom.
Yeah.
And then, bam, unexpected love in the most unlikely place. But this story, I think, it's not just about finding a new partner. It's about Daphne rediscovering herself.
You mentioned you love stories with strong women, and I think Daphne definitely fits that. She's not just, reacting to things. She's questioning her choices, facing her fears, figuring out who she wants to be.
Exactly. Remember how she used to call herself a minimalist? almost like she was afraid to, get too attached. Well, that changed with Peter, right? She let herself be vulnerable, built a life with him. And when it fell apart, well, it was devastating. But she's not hiding anymore. She's using this to grow.
It's like she's finally realizing that it's okay to want things, to have dreams, to let people in. And Miles, even with his own baggage, she's like encouraging her to do that. Remember what he said. The love of your life sucks, but that doesn't mean you have to suck too.
Oh, yeah, that line is great. It's about taking back your story after heartbreak, about not letting someone else define you. I think a lot of people can relate to that. We've all felt like we were, drowning in someone else's mess. But Miles is reminding Daphne, reminding us that we have the power to choose how we respond.
So true. And as Daphne and Miles figure things out, their friendship, the whole Peter and Petra situation, what do you think a happy ending looks like for Daphne?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think the cool thing is that this story doesn't give us easy answers. It leaves us with this possibility that happiness can be anywhere, with people who, see us for who we really are.
And maybe, just maybe, dragons really do love tacos.
That's a mystery for another day. This deep dive has been awesome. Let us know what you think about the rest of Funny Story and how Daphne's journey ends, okay?
Yeah, keep us posted. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another one, ready to unpack all your juicy details and burning questions. Until then, happy reading.